arrived at my son's birthday party. But my daughter-in-law told me I wasn't invited because of who I am. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I never thought I'd be writing this. Even now, sitting here with my laptop open and my hands trembling over the keys, I can barely believe what happened. But I need to get this out. I need someone to hear my story, even if it's just strangers on the internet who will never know my face or my name. My son turned 35 last week. I didn't get to celebrate with him. Let me start from the beginning, because none of this makes sense without context. My son, David, has been the center of my world since the day he was born. I was 23 when I had him, young and terrified, but determined to give him everything I never had. His father left when David was 2, just packed his bags one Tuesday morning and never came back. I won't lie and say it didn't break me. It did. But I had David, and that meant I couldn't stay broken. I worked 2 jobs for years. During the day, I was a receptionist at a dental office, and 3 nights a week, I cleaned offices downtown. I remember David as a little boy, maybe 5 or 6, asking me why I was always so tired. I told him I was saving up for his future, for college, for all the things he deserved. He hugged me so tight that night. I can still feel those small arms around my neck. He was such a sweet child, sensitive, thoughtful, always worried about others. In 2nd grade, he gave his lunch to a classmate whose parents were going through a rough patch. He came home hungry, and when I asked him why he hadn't eaten, he just shrugged and said, "Tommy needed it more." I cried that night after I put him to bed. I was so proud and so heartbroken at the same time, knowing he'd learned to sacrifice from watching me. Middle school was hard for him. He was small for his age, wore glasses, loved reading more than sports. You know how cruel kids can be. There were days he'd come home with his shirt torn or his books scattered in the mud. I wanted to march into that school and shake every child who'd ever hurt him, but instead, I held him while he cried and told him that being kind in a cruel world was the bravest thing anyone could do. High school changed him. He grew 6 inches in one summer, filled out, got contact lenses. Suddenly the girls noticed him, and he joined the debate team, which gave him confidence. I watched him transform from my wounded little boy into this articulate, self-assured young man. He got into a good state university on a partial scholarship. I covered the rest with loans I'm still paying off, but I never told him that. He thought his scholarships covered everything. I wanted him to focus on his studies, not worry about money the way I always had. College was when he met Rachel. I remember the first time he told me about her. It was Thanksgiving of his junior year, and he was home for the holiday. His whole face lit up when he said her name. "Mom, she's incredible. She's smart and ambitious and beautiful. I think she might be the one." I was happy for him. Truly I was. What mother doesn't want her son to find love? He brought her home that Christmas, and I did everything I could to make her feel welcome. I cleaned the house top to bottom, bought new towels for the guest bathroom, made a huge dinner with all of David's favorites, plus a vegetarian option, because he'd mentioned Rachel didn't eat meat. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Tall and slim, with this perfect blonde hair that looked like something from a shampoo commercial. She had a way of carrying herself that spoke of confidence, of someone who'd never had to work 2 jobs or wear shoes with holes in them. Her family had money, not rich, but comfortable. The kind of comfortable where you don't check your bank account before buying groceries. That first visit was fine. Polite. She smiled at the right times, said thank you for dinner, complimented the house. But there was something in her eyes when she looked at me, something I couldn't quite name. Distance, maybe? Like she was observing me from behind glass. They got engaged 2 years after graduation. David called me, crying happy tears. She said, "Yes, Mom, I can't believe it. I'm going to marry her. I cried too, told him how proud I was, how happy I was for him. And I meant it. I did. But I also felt this tiny seed of worry plant itself in my chest. The wedding planning was when I started to see more clearly. Rachel wanted a big wedding 200 guests, a country club venue, a designer dress. David was working his first job out of college, making decent money, but nothing extravagant. I offered to help. I'd been saving for years, thinking maybe I'd finally take a vacation or fix up the house. But this was more important. This was David's happiness. Rachel accepted my contribution with a thin smile. "That's very generous," she said, in a tone that somehow made it sound like it wasn't generous at all. She never asked my opinion on any of the wedding details. When I tentatively suggested a song I'd always imagined for David's wedding, she just said, "We've already decided on the music," and changed the subject. The wedding itself was beautiful. I won't take that away from her. But I remember sitting at my table, not at the head table with the wedding party, but at table 12 with some of David's distant cousins I'd never met, and watching my son dance with his new wife, feeling like I was looking at him through that same glass I'd sensed from Rachel. Close enough to see, too far to touch. They moved to the city, about 2 hours away from me. David got a promotion. Rachel started working at a marketing firm. They bought a condo with granite countertops and floor-to-ceiling windows. I visited once, unannounced, and I could see the flash of irritation on Rachel's face before she smoothed it away. "Next time, maybe call first," she said sweetly, but there was steel underneath. I started calling before visiting. Then I started waiting to be invited. The invitations came less and less frequently. When they announced Rachel was pregnant, I was over the moon. A grandchild. David called me first, before anyone else, and I could hear the joy and terror in his voice. "I'm going to be a dad, Mom. Can you believe it?" I told him he'd be wonderful, that he'd learned from the best meaning himself, not me, because he'd grown into such a good man despite my fumbling attempts at single parenthood. I offered to help when the baby came, to stay with them for a week or two, to cook and clean, and let them focus on the newborn. Rachel said, "My mother will be staying with us, but thank you." Her mother stayed for 6 weeks. I got to visit twice, for a few hours each time, and hold my grandson while Rachel hovered nearby, watching me like I might drop him. His name is Jake. He's 4 now. I've seen him maybe 20 times in those 4 years. Every visit is scheduled weeks in advance. Every visit feels like I'm intruding. Rachel has this way of making suggestions that aren't really suggestions. "Oh, you brought candy? We don't really do sugar in this house." "Those toys are a bit loud, aren't they?" "Jake needs to stick to his schedule, so maybe visit another time?" I tried. God, I tried. I complimented her parenting. I brought gifts she approved of, educational wooden toys, organic snacks, books about feelings. I bit my tongue when she corrected the way I held Jake or told him stories. I smiled through her subtle criticisms about my clothes, my hair, the way I spoke. And David. My sweet, sensitive David. He changed. Or maybe I just finally saw what Rachel had been doing all along. He stopped calling as much. When I called him, he was always busy, always distracted. When I suggested we meet for lunch, just the two of us, he'd say, "Let me check with Rachel," and then he'd text me days later, saying they had plans. I told myself I was being paranoid, that Rachel was just protective of her family, that David was just busy with work and fatherhood, that this was normal, this growing distance between a mother and her adult son. Then came Jake's 3rd birthday. I wasn't invited to the party. David called me the day before, sounding uncomfortable, and said, "Hey, Mom, so tomorrow's Jake's birthday party, and it's going to be pretty small. Just a few kids from his preschool and their parents. We're keeping it low-key." I said I understood, even though I didn't. Even though it hurt to know I wouldn't be there for my grandson's birthday. David promised we'd do something special, just the 3 of us, him, me, and Jake, the following weekend. That weekend never happened. David texted me the night before saying Jake had come down with something and they needed to reschedule. We never rescheduled. Last year, David's birthday came and went with a brief phone call. He sounded tired, distracted. When I asked if they were doing anything special, he said, "Just a quiet dinner at home. Rachel's making my favorite." I'd used to make his favorite, lasagna with extra cheese, the recipe I'd perfected over years of trial and error. I wondered if Rachel knew that. I wondered if David remembered. This year, I decided I wasn't going to miss it. I wasn't going to be shut out anymore. David's 35th birthday felt significant somehow. A milestone. I wanted to be there. I wanted him to know that I still cared, that I was still his mother, that I hadn't forgotten every birthday candle we'd blown out together when it was just the two of us against the world. I didn't ask if I could come. I decided I would just show up, not empty-handed. I'd never do that. I spent weeks finding the perfect gift. David had mentioned, months ago during one of our increasingly rare phone calls, that he wanted a vintage edition of his favorite childhood book. I searched online marketplaces and antique stores until I found it. A first edition of The Phantom Tollbooth, the book I'd read to him every night when he was 8. The book that made him fall in love with reading, with words, with stories. It cost more than I could afford, but I bought it anyway. I had it wrapped in beautiful paper, navy blue with silver stars, the same color scheme from the bedroom I'd painted for him when he was 10 and obsessed with astronomy. I drove the 2 hours to their place last Saturday, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. I kept rehearsing what I'd say. "Surprise! I couldn't miss your birthday, sweetheart. I hope you don't mind that I didn't call first." Casual, breezy, like it was perfectly normal for a mother to show up at her son's birthday celebration. Their building is one of those modern complexes with a doorman and a lobby that echoes with money. I'd only been there a handful of times. Each time I felt out of place in my worn coat and sensible shoes. But not today. Today I was David's mother, and I had every right to be there. I rode the elevator to the 8th floor, clutching the wrapped book to my chest like armor. I could hear voices through their door as I approached. Laughter, music. The high-pitched excitement of children playing. So it was a party. A real party, not just a quiet dinner. My stomach twisted, but I pushed the feeling away. Maybe David hadn't mentioned it because he wanted to surprise me. Maybe he'd been planning to call and invite me all along. I knocked. The door opened, and there was Rachel. She was wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, her hair pulled back in an elegant twist, her makeup flawless. Behind her, I could see their living room full of people, balloons, a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, David," a table laden with food. Rachel's smile disappeared the instant she saw me. Her eyes went cold. "Linda," she said. Not "hi," not "hello," just my name, flat and unwelcoming. "Hi, Rachel. I came for David's birthday. I brought a gift." I held up the wrapped book, trying to smile, trying to ignore the way she was standing in the doorway, making no move to let me in. "David's birthday?" she repeated, as if I'd said something in a foreign language. "Yes. I know I should have called, but I wanted to surprise him. Can I come in?" Rachel stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind her. The laughter and music became muffled. It was just the two of us in that beige corridor, and I felt something shift in the air. Something sharp and dangerous. "Linda," she said again, and this time her voice was different. Harder. "You weren't invited." The words hung between us. I actually laughed, a nervous, confused sound. "I know, but I'm his mother. I didn't think I needed an invitation to—" "You weren't invited," Rachel interrupted. "Not because of today, but because of who you are." I stopped breathing. I'm not being dramatic. I actually felt my lungs stop working for a moment. The hallway seemed to tilt. "What?" "You heard me." Rachel crossed her arms, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen openly before, though I'd felt it lurking beneath every polite smile, every thin thank you. Contempt. Pure, undisguised contempt. This party is for David's birthday, yes, but it's for our friends, our social circle. It's not appropriate for you to be here. Not appropriate? I'm his mother. Exactly. Rachel's lip curled slightly. You're the cleaning lady who raised him. You're the single mother from the wrong side of town who worked night shifts and couldn't even afford to send him to a decent school. Do you think David wants to be reminded of that? Do you think our friends want to make awkward conversation with someone who has nothing in common with them? I felt like I'd been slapped. No worse than slapped. I felt like she'd reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. He wouldn't. David has moved on, Rachel said, and her voice was almost kind now, which made it so much worse. He's built a life here, a good life, a successful life, and that life doesn't include weekend visits from someone who reminds him of struggle and poverty and everything he's worked to leave behind. I sacrificed everything for him. My voice came out as a whisper. I worked 2 jobs. I went without, so he could have. I put him through college. And he appreciates that, I'm sure. Rachel waved a hand dismissively, like she was swatting away a fly. But appreciation doesn't mean he wants you here. Linda, you're from a different world. You dress differently. You talk differently. You embarrass him. That's not true. But even as I said it, I was thinking of all the times David had subtly corrected my grammar. The way he'd suggested I might want to update my wardrobe. The time I'd posted a photo on Facebook of us from his college graduation, and he'd asked me to take it down. Isn't it? Rachel tilted her head. When was the last time David invited you to something? When was the last time he called you just to talk? I couldn't answer, because I knew she was right. It had been months, maybe longer. He's my son, I said, and I hated how my voice broke. I love him. I know you do, Rachel sighed, like I was a particularly slow student who just wasn't getting the lesson. But love isn't enough. You don't fit into his life anymore. You never really did, but he was too kind to tell you. So I'm telling you now, clearly, so there's no confusion. You're not welcome here. Not today, not for holidays, not for Jake's birthdays. David needs to move forward, and you're holding him back. Does David know you're saying this to me? I demanded. Does he know you're out here telling me I'm not good enough for my own son? For the first time, Rachel looked uncomfortable. David knows how I feel, and he agrees with me, even if he's too soft-hearted to say it himself. I want to hear it from him. Let me talk to David. No, Rachel's voice turned to ice. You're going to leave now. You're going to go home, and you're going to stop trying to force yourself into a life where you don't belong. He's my son, I repeated, and this time I was crying. Tears were streaming down my face, and I didn't care. I raised him. I was there for every nightmare, every disappointment, every triumph. I was the one who believed in him when no one else did. You can't just erase that. I'm not erasing anything. Rachel's face softened slightly, but it felt like pity, which was somehow worse than contempt. I'm sure David will always have fond memories of his childhood, but that's what they are, memories. You're the past, Linda. I'm his future. Our children are his future. His career and his friends and his real life are his future. And there's no room in that future for someone who makes him feel like the poor scholarship kid he used to be. Something inside me broke then. Not my heart, that had already been shattered. Something else. My dignity, maybe, or my hope. Please, I whispered. Please let me see him. Just for a minute. I brought him a present. It's his favorite book from when he was a child. I spent weeks finding it. Rachel glanced at the wrapped package in my hands, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. Give it to me. I'll make sure he gets it. I want to give it to him myself. That's not going to happen. You can give it to me, or you can take it home. Those are your options. I looked at the closed door behind her. I could hear the party continuing inside, oblivious to the destruction happening in the hallway. I thought about pushing past her, bursting in, calling out for David. But what would happen then? Would he be happy to see me? Or would his face close off with embarrassment? I thought about the little boy who'd hugged me so tight when I was tired, the teenager who'd told me I was his hero, the young man who'd called me, crying with joy when Rachel said yes. Where had that David gone? Was he still in there somewhere? Or had Rachel molded him into someone new? Someone who was ashamed of where he came from? I need to know, I said quietly. I need to hear it from David. If he tells me himself that he doesn't want me in his life, I'll go. But I need to hear it from him. Rachel studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. Fine, I'll get him. She opened the door a crack and slipped inside. I stood there in the hallway, still clutching the wrapped book, listening to my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Minutes passed. Or maybe it was seconds. Time felt strange and elastic. Then the door opened again, and David stepped out. My son. My baby. He was wearing a button-down shirt and nice jeans, and he'd gotten a haircut recently. He looked handsome and successful, and like a stranger. Mom. His face was flushed, embarrassed. What are you doing here? I came for your birthday. Happy birthday, sweetheart. He didn't meet my eyes. You should have called first. I wanted to surprise you. I brought you something. I held out the book, and he took it automatically. It's a first edition of The Phantom Toll Booth. Remember how I used to read it to you every night? I thought you'd... Mom, this really isn't a good time. He still wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the wall behind my shoulder, at the floor, anywhere but at my face. David, Rachel said some things to me? Terrible things. Tell me they're not true. Tell me she doesn't speak for you. What did she say? His voice was tight. That I embarrass you, that I don't fit into your life, that you don't want me around anymore. The tears were back, and I didn't try to stop them. Tell me that's not true. Please. David was quiet for so long that I felt my last hope crumble to dust. Mom, he said finally, you have to understand. Things are different now. I'm different. My life is... It's not like it used to be. I have responsibilities, a reputation to maintain. And sometimes... He stopped, started again. Sometimes it's hard when you're around. You don't understand the people I work with, the world I live in now. You say things that don't really fit. And Rachel's friends, her parents, they have certain expectations. Expectations I don't meet, I said numbly. It's not that you're not good enough. You're my mother. I love you. But you're ashamed of me. I'm not. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Why do you have to make this so difficult? I'm trying to build something here, a good life for my family. And sometimes that means making choices about who I spend my time with, what image I project. I'm not an image. I'm your mother. I know, and I'm grateful for everything you did. I am. But I'm 35 years old. I can't keep living in the past. I can't keep being the poor kid whose mom worked as a cleaning lady. I've worked hard to be more than that. Each word was a knife. I never wanted you to be ashamed of who you were. I wanted you to be proud. I was proud of you, always. I know, Mom, but it's complicated. Rachel is right. You don't really fit in with our lifestyle. And it's hard for me to balance both worlds. It's easier if we have some space. Space. I repeated the word like it was foreign. You want space from your mother. I want to be able to focus on my own family without feeling guilty all the time, without feeling like I owe you something. You don't owe me anything, I said, and I meant it. I never wanted you to feel like you owed me. I did what I did because I loved you, because you were my son and I would have done anything for you. I know, and I appreciate it. But Mom, that's kind of the problem. You gave up so much, sacrificed so much, and now I feel like I can never live up to what you expect from me. Like I'm always disappointing you just by living my own life. When have I ever said I was disappointed in you? You don't have to say it. I can feel it every time you look at Rachel, every time you make those comments about how things used to be. You want me to still be that little boy who needed you. But I'm not him anymore. I know you're not, I whispered. I just wanted to be part of who you are now. David's eyes finally met mine, and what I saw there destroyed me. Guilt, yes, but also relief. Relief that this was finally out in the open, that he didn't have to pretend anymore. I think it's better if we take a break, he said softly. Just for a while. Let me focus on my family, my career. And maybe down the road, when things settle, we can figure out what our relationship looks like. A break. From your mother. Don't make this harder than it has to be. How long is a while? Months? Years? Until I die? Mom, please. No. I stepped back, away from him, and I felt something settle inside me. Something cold and final. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're a grown man, and you get to choose who's in your life. And clearly, you've chosen. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You've chosen Rachel's world over mine. You've chosen to be ashamed of where you came from, of who raised you, of the sacrifices that got you to where you are. And that's your choice to make. I'm not ashamed of you, David said, but he couldn't even say it convincingly. Yes, you are. And you know what? Maybe that's on me. Maybe I did too much, loved too hard, made you feel like you could never be your own person. Or maybe you're just not who I thought you were. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I barely recognized the man standing in front of me. The David I raised would never have let his wife speak to me the way Rachel just did. The David I raised would have defended me, would have stood up for me, would have told anyone who made me feel small to go to hell. Rachel didn't. What did she say to you? It doesn't matter now. What matters is that you didn't need to hear it to know it was happening. You knew. You've always known how she felt about me, and you chose her anyway. She's my wife. And I'm your mother, but apparently, one of those relationships is disposable. David's face tightened. That's not fair. No, it's not. None of this is fair, but it's the truth. I looked down at the wrapped book in his hands. I spent 3 weeks looking for that. I spent money I couldn't afford. I wrapped it in your favorite colors from when you were 10, and you haven't even opened it. He looked down at the package like he was seeing it for the first time. I don't need you to open it now, I said. In fact, I don't need you to open it at all. Give it to Goodwill. Throw it away. I don't care anymore. Mom, don't be like this. Like what? Hurt? Betrayed? How exactly should I be, David? Should I smile and nod and agree that I'm not good enough for you? Should I apologize for working 2 jobs to feed you and dress you and put you through school? I never asked you to do that. The words hung in the air between us, and I saw the exact moment David realized what he'd said. His face went pale. You never asked me to, I repeated slowly. You're right. You were a child. You didn't ask me to sacrifice. I chose to. Because that's what parents do. They sacrifice for their children without expecting anything in return. Except maybe, just maybe, they expect not to be tossed aside like garbage when those children decide they're too good for them. Mom, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. And you know what? I'm glad this happened. I'm glad I came here today. Because now I know. Now I understand exactly where I stand in your life. I took a deep breath, and it felt like breathing glass. I won't bother you anymore. You want space? You've got it. All the space in the world. Don't do this. Don't make this some big dramatic thing. I'm not making it anything. You already did that. I'm just accepting it. Behind David, the door opened slightly, and Rachel appeared. Is everything okay out here? People are asking about you. David glanced back at her, then at me, and I saw him make his choice in real time. He turned toward Rachel. Yeah, everything's fine. I'll be right in. Rachel smiled, triumphant, and disappeared back inside. I should go, David said. And he sounded almost apologetic. Almost. Yes, you should. You have a party to get back to. Friends who fit your lifestyle. A wife who knows what expectations to meet. I turned toward the elevator. Happy birthday, David. I hope it's everything you wanted. Mom, wait. No. I pressed the elevator button, and miraculously, the doors opened immediately. I'm done waiting. I've been waiting for you to be the person I raised. But that person doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. Maybe I just invented him in my head. That's not true. I'm still me. Then who are you, David? Because I don't recognize you anymore. The elevator doors started to close, and David lunged forward, stopping them with his hand. I don't want it to end like this. It already has. You ended it the moment you let Rachel tell me I wasn't good enough. You ended it every time you chose not to call, not to visit, not to include me. This is just the first time I've accepted it. I do love you, Mom. I looked at him, at his anguished face, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast emptiness where my heart used to be. I'm sure you do in your way, but love isn't enough when it comes with shame. I stepped back, letting the doors close between us. The last thing I saw was David standing in that hallway, still holding the wrapped book, looking lost and young, and nothing like the man he'd become. I cried all the way down to the lobby. I cried through the doorman's concerned look, through the walk to my car, through the 2-hour drive home. I cried until I had no tears left, until I was just driving through the darkness with a hollow feeling in my chest. When I got home, my house felt different. Smaller. Emptier. I'd filled it with memories of David photos on every wall, his childhood drawings still stuck to the refrigerator. His room kept exactly as he'd left it. It was a shrine to a boy who didn't exist anymore, built by a mother who couldn't let go. I walked through the house, looking at everything with new eyes. Here was the table where I'd helped him with homework until midnight. Here was the kitchen, where I'd made his favorite meals. Here was the living room, where we'd watched movies on Friday nights, when I was too tired to do anything else, but still wanted to spend time with him. I'd built my entire life around being David's mother. And now, David didn't want me to be his mother anymore. Or at least, he didn't want the kind of mother I was. So who was I? Who was Linda, without David to raise, without a son to sacrifice for? I didn't know. I'd lost myself so completely in motherhood that I'd never bothered to be anything else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last 10 years. Looking for the signs I'd missed, the warnings I'd ignored. They were all there. Every canceled plan, every delayed phone call, every time David said, "Let me check with Rachel," instead of just saying yes. I'd told myself it was normal, that adult children grew distant, that marriage changed priorities. But the truth was simpler and more painful. David had been pulling away for years, and I'd been holding on too tight, refusing to see what was right in front of me. Around 3 a.m, I got out of bed and did something I'd been avoiding for months. I looked at David's social media. He kept his accounts private from me, another sign I'd ignored, but I'd made a fake profile months ago, a moment of weak paranoia that I'd felt ashamed of. Now I logged into it and scrolled through his life. Photos of parties I'd never been invited to, holidays spent with Rachel's family, Jake's 4th birthday party, the one I wasn't allowed to attend, with 40 guests and a bouncy castle and a cake that must have cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. And photos of David, smiling and relaxed, in a way I hadn't seen him in years. Not when he was with me, only with them, his real family. There was one photo that stopped me cold. It was from last Christmas. David, Rachel, Jake, and Rachel's parents, all wearing matching pajamas, sitting by an enormous tree in Rachel's parents' living room. The caption said, "Grateful for family." I wasn't in the picture. I hadn't been invited to Christmas. I'd spent last Christmas alone, telling myself they were probably just doing something small, just the 3 of them. I'd even sent gifts, expensive ones I couldn't afford, and gotten a text back from David that said, "Thanks, Mom," with no photo, No phone call, nothing to indicate he'd actually opened them or cared. Now I knew the truth. They'd had a big family Christmas, just not with me. I closed the laptop and sat in the darkness of my living room, and I made a decision. I was done. Done pretending this relationship was something it wasn't. Done hoping David would suddenly remember who I was and what I'd meant to him. Done shrinking myself to try to fit into a life that didn't want me. I couldn't change David. I couldn't make him value me or appreciate what I'd sacrificed. I couldn't force him to be the son I'd raised instead of the man he'd become. But I could change myself. I could stop building my life around someone who'd walked away. Over the next few weeks, I started taking down the shrine. Photos went into boxes. David's room was cleared out, his childhood belongings packed away. I repainted it a soft gray and moved my sewing machine in, something I'd loved to do before David was born, something I'd given up because there was no time, no money, no space for my own hobbies. I called the community college and asked about classes, literature, photography, things I'd always wanted to learn but never had the chance. I reached out to old friends, people I'd lost touch with over the years, because I was always too busy or too tired or too focused on David to maintain adult friendships. I started filling my life with things that were mine, not because I was someone's mother, but because I was someone. Period. David texted me once, about 2 weeks after his birthday. "Hey Mom, hope you're doing okay. Sorry about the party. Maybe we can meet for lunch sometime." I stared at that text for a long time. A month ago, I would have jumped at it. Would have suggested 3 different restaurants and 5 different times, eager to see him, to convince him I could fit into his world. Now I just felt tired. I wrote back, "I'm busy these days. Let me know when you have some time and we'll see." He didn't respond. 3 weeks later, Rachel called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Linda, it's Rachel. I wanted to talk to you about something." Her voice was different, less cold, almost uncertain. "What is it?" I kept my tone neutral. "It's about Jake's preschool graduation next month. We're having a small ceremony, and David thought, well, we thought you might want to come." "Why the change of heart?" Silence on the other end. Then, "David's been upset since his birthday. He won't admit it, but I can tell. And Jake keeps asking about Grandma. He remembers you, even though we haven't." She stopped. "Look, I know what I said to you was harsh. Maybe I was protecting my territory too much. David is my husband, but you are his mother." "Is this David calling, or is this you trying to fix something you broke?" "It's me," Rachel admitted. "David doesn't know I'm calling. But Linda, he's been different, distant, and I realized that maybe I pushed too hard. I thought I was protecting him from feeling less than. But maybe I was wrong." "Maybe?" I let the word hang there. "I was wrong," Rachel said, and she sounded like it cost her something to admit it. "I thought you represented everything he wanted to move away from. But you're not the past he's ashamed of. You're the foundation he built his life on. And I tried to kick that foundation out from under him." I didn't say anything. I wanted to hear what else she'd say, wanted to know if this was real or just another manipulation. "Will you come to Jake's graduation, please? David needs his mother, even if he's too proud to say it." "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. I did think about it. For days. Part of me wanted to go, wanted to believe that maybe things could change. But a bigger part of me remembered standing in that hallway, remembered the contempt on Rachel's face, remembered David choosing to go back to his party instead of fighting for me. In the end, I sent a card to Jake with $20 inside. I didn't go to the graduation. David called me the day after. "Mom, where were you? Jake was looking for you." "I was busy," I said, using his own words against him. "I had plans." "Rachel said she called you. She said she invited you." "She did, and I decided not to come." "Why?" He sounded genuinely hurt, which almost made me laugh. After everything, he was hurt that I didn't show up? "Because I'm tired, David. I'm tired of being invited when it's convenient and dismissed when it's not. I'm tired of feeling like I have to audition to be part of your life. I'm your mother. I shouldn't have to beg for scraps of your time. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, and I'm done with it. So what? You're just giving up on me? On being my mother? The question hit me hard, but I'd had weeks to prepare for it. I'll always be your mother, David, but I'm also my own person, and I spent 35 years making you the center of my universe. I don't have anything left to give you, especially when you made it clear my presence embarrasses you. I never said that. You didn't have to. You showed me. Every canceled visit, every time you chose Rachel's family over me, every moment you stood by while she made me feel small. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions have been screaming at me for years. I just finally started listening. I do love you, Mom. I know you do, in your way. But your love comes with conditions, and I'm not willing to meet them anymore. I'm not going to change who I am to fit into your life. I'm not going to apologize for being a single mother who worked cleaning jobs. I'm not going to feel ashamed of the sacrifices I made. If you can't accept me as I am, then we don't have much of a relationship to salvage. That's not fair. You're making me choose between you and Rachel. No, I'm not. You already chose. I'm just accepting your choice and moving on with my life. David was quiet for a long moment. I don't want to lose you. Then don't. But you need to decide what kind of relationship you want with me. One where I'm an equal part of your life, or one where I'm kept at arm's length and only brought out when it's convenient. Because I won't accept the second option anymore. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. I paused. But David, I'm also not waiting around anymore. I have my own life to live. That was 6 months ago. David hasn't called since. Neither has Rachel. I see updates on Jake through that fake social media profile. He's 5 now, started kindergarten, lost his first tooth. I see photos of David at work events, at parties, on family vacations. He looks happy, maybe happier without the weight of my expectations on him. I tell myself I'm okay with it. Most days, I am. I finished my first college class, Introduction to Literature, and got an A. I joined a book club at the library. I've made friends, real friends, women my own age, who understand what it's like to lose yourself in motherhood and have to find your way back. I started dating someone, a kind man named Robert, who I met at a photography class. It's nothing serious yet, but it's nice to have someone care about me just because of who I am, not because of what I can give them. I'm learning to be Linda again, not David's mother, not the woman who sacrificed everything, just Linda, a woman with interests and hobbies, and a life that belongs to her. But there are still hard days. Days when I see a mother with her adult son at the grocery store and feel a physical ache in my chest. Days when Jake's birthday comes and goes, and I'm not there to celebrate. Days when I wake up and reach for my phone to call David before I remember that we don't talk anymore. Those days, I let myself grieve. I let myself feel the loss of the relationship I thought we'd have, the grandmother role I dreamed of playing. I let myself mourn the son who used to hug me and tell me I was his hero. And then, I get up, and I live my life. Because that's all I can do. Sometimes I wonder if David thinks about me, if he misses me, if he's told Rachel that maybe she was wrong, that maybe pushing his mother out of his life wasn't the answer. If he looks at Jake and wonders what it would be like to lose his child someday, to have Jake grow up and decide his father isn't good enough anymore. I wonder if he's kept that first edition of the Phantom Tollbooth, or if he threw it away. If he ever opens it and remembers the nights I read it to him, my voice hoarse from working all day, but still determined to give him this one thing, this magic of stories and words and possibility. I wonder if he remembers me at all, or if I've become just a shadow in his mind, the woman who raised him, faceless and formless, a duty fulfilled and left behind. But mostly, I try not to wonder. Because wondering leads to hoping, and hoping leads to waiting, and I promised myself I was done waiting. Last week, something happened that made me question everything. I was at the mall, buying a birthday gift for one of my new friends, when I heard a familiar voice. I turned, and there was David. Just David, no Rachel, no Jake. He was standing by a bookstore, talking on his phone, and he looked tired. Older than 35, worn down. I could have walked away, I could have slipped past him without being seen, but something made me stop. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that still loves him, that will always love him, no matter what. I waited until he finished his call. Then I walked over. David. He turned, and the look on his face, surprise, joy, guilt, fear, all mixed together, told me everything I needed to know. He'd missed me, too. Mom! His voice cracked. I didn't think I'd see you here. I shop here sometimes. How are you? He stopped, started again. Can we talk? Maybe grab coffee? I should have said no. I should have been strong, kept walking, maintained the boundaries I'd worked so hard to establish. But he looked so lost, so much like the little boy who used to come home with torn shirts and mud on his books, that I couldn't. Okay. We went to a coffee shop in the mall, sat across from each other in uncomfortable silence while we waited for our drinks. David kept opening his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closing it again. Finally, I spoke. Why did you want to talk to me, David? I miss you, he said simply. I know I don't have the right to say that. I know I pushed you away. But I miss you, Mom. What changed? Everything. Nothing. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from his childhood when he was trying to work through something difficult. Rachel and I are in counseling. We've been fighting a lot. About you, actually. About me? She thinks I made a mistake, letting you go. She says I took her insecurity and made it into a weapon against you, and that wasn't fair. She says... He took a breath. She says she was jealous of you, of how much I loved you, how much you sacrificed for me. She felt like she could never measure up, so she convinced herself and me that you were the problem. And you believed her. I did, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I was weak and I was selfish, and I hurt you in ways I can never take back. I sat there, looking at my son, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. You did hurt me, David. You let your wife treat me like I was nothing. You stood by while she told me I embarrassed you, that I wasn't good enough for your life. And then you confirmed it. You told me I didn't fit in, that I made things difficult. You asked me to give you space from being your mother. I know, and I've regretted it every single day since. I see Jake, and I think about you raising me alone, working 2 jobs, sacrificing everything. And I wonder how I could have been so ungrateful, so blind. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Yes, I did. Can you forgive me? The question hung between us. Could I? Should I? I don't know, I said honestly. You broke something between us, David. You broke my trust. And I'm not sure it can be fixed with an apology in a coffee shop. I know, but I want to try. I want to make this right. I want you in my life, in Jake's life. I want you to be his grandmother, the way you should have been all along. What about Rachel? She wants it too. She wants to apologize to you herself. She knows what she did was wrong. I thought about it. About Rachel's phone call months ago, about the genuine remorse in her voice, about the years of hurt and the possibility of healing. I need time, I said. I need to think about whether I can do this, whether I can let you back in after you shut me out so completely. Take all the time you need. I'll wait, however long it takes. We talked for another hour, about his work, his marriage, Jake's kindergarten adventures, about my classes, my new friends, my life that didn't revolve around him anymore. And something felt different. He listened, really listened. He asked questions about my photography class, about my book club, about Robert. When we finally said goodbye, David hugged me. It was the first time he'd hugged me in years, and I let myself hold on for a moment before pulling away. Thank you for talking to me, he said. Even if you decide you don't want me in your life anymore, thank you for giving me this. I nodded and walked away, not trusting myself to speak. Now I'm sitting here, writing this all out, trying to figure out what I want. Do I let David back in? Do I risk being hurt again? Do I believe that people can change? That he's genuinely sorry and not just feeling guilty? I don't have the answers yet. What I do know is this. I'm not the same woman I was 6 months ago. I'm not the mother who would have accepted any crumb of affection, who would have bent over backward to fit into a life that didn't want me. I've built something for myself. I've remembered who I am beyond being David's mother. And if I decide to let him back into my life, it will be on my terms. As an equal, as someone who deserves respect and consideration, not as someone who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention he deigns to give me. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe it makes me a bad mother. But I think it makes me a person. A person with value and dignity and self-respect. David asked if I could forgive him. The truth is, I already have. At least partially. Because holding on to anger was eating me alive, and I needed to let it go for my own sake, not his. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean going back to the way things were. If David wants to be part of my life again, he needs to understand that I'm not the same woman he pushed away. I'm stronger now, more independent, less willing to sacrifice my own happiness for his comfort. And if he can accept that, if he can love me as I am now, not as I was, then maybe we can rebuild something. Not the relationship we had before, but something new. Something healthier. But that's his choice to make. I've made mine. I've chosen myself. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So that's my story. That's what happened when I showed up at my son's birthday party and was told I wasn't invited because of who I am. It broke me. It rebuilt me. It taught me that love isn't enough when it comes with shame, and that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who make you feel small, even if one of those people is your own child. I don't know how this story ends. Maybe David and I find our way back to each other. Maybe we don't. Maybe Jake grows up knowing his grandmother, or maybe he grows up with stories of the woman his father pushed away. All I know is that I'm okay either way, because for the first time in 35 years, I'm not living my life for David. I'm living it for me, and that, finally, is enough.